Tonight we continue our series of pre-election interviews with a candidate for state representative in the 11th Suffolk District. Currently represented by Liz Malia, the district includes parts of Jamaica Plain, Roxbury, Rosendale, and Grove Hall. Our guest is one of the challengers in the Democratic primary on September 4th. We'd like to welcome Charles Clemons. Thank you very much for being with us, Charles.
Thank you very much, Chris. It's an honor and a pleasure.
I'm sure a lot of our viewers know you from Touch Radio, but what else in the background should they know about?
Well, one, that I walked from Boston to Washington, D.C. in 2009 to push a bill forward. In 2000, and I successfully walked from Boston to Washington, D.C. for Low Power FM Radio Act, which gives licenses for community radio stations, gives underserved communities a voice. Made it to Washington, D.C. in 2009, 2010. The House of Representatives unanimously voted for it. 2011, the Senate voted for it. And then January 4th, 2012, President Barack Obama signed a bill which opened up the floodgates for over 3,000 community radio licenses across America.
Just recently, we've had some stretches of violence in the city, if not quite in, but pretty close to the district. You have recently reacted by telling people to take back the streets. What would you like to see them do?
Actually, it's, Chris, I don't say take back the streets, take charge of your community. Because the community belongs to us, and it's time for us, particularly men, to stand up and stop patrolling our streets, become surrogate fathers in our communities, and get to know your neighbors and protect our women and our children. It's not rocket science to do the right thing. We're constantly looking for those that have suits and are making six figures to solve our problems when we should be solving our problems. Get to know who your neighbor is. Have community meetings once a month on your street to discuss the issues and the concerns, and then come up with action plans to make it happen.
Another problem connected with that violence is the police say that they're not getting information from people who see what's going on or know what's going on. What's the missing piece?
Well, I believe that they are getting information. As you know, 1/3 of the guns that have been confiscated in Massachusetts end back up on the streets. We need to focus on where the guns are coming from. Just like a salmonella breakout, we don't just focus on the victim, we go to the source. We need to find out where those guns are coming from, and also do an inventory at the federal, the state, and the local levels on the guns that have been confiscated and how many of them are still locked up.
So what can you do about that in the State House? I mean, we've strengthened laws here in Massachusetts. Is there much more strengthening that you can do at the state level?
Absolutely. You know, our elected officials, they're lawmakers. Those laws affect the residents. Also, the residents need to be aware that the elected officials, where they're linked to government. So yes, it can be done with the help of the people, with information. And as state representative for the 11th Suffolk District, I'll use my bully pulpit to get that information out. As you know, as an elected official, you have the media at your fingertips.
Turning to education, concerned about quality and concerned about state funding. I know there's a state senator who'd like to see that increased quite a bit, but what would you like to see done?
Well, I would like for colleges and universities in the state of Massachusetts or the Commonwealth, and to be honest with you, Chris, there's nothing common about the wealth. I would love to see the colleges and the universities in Massachusetts pay their fair share of taxes. At this time, they don't pay taxes at the rate that we pay taxes. 2009, I gave Governor Deval Patrick and Mayor Menino, God rest his soul, I gave them a package that I added up the real estate that colleges and universities own in Massachusetts. If they were to pay property tax at the rate that we pay, Chris, it would have generated in 2009 $45.5 billion, $45.5 billion, which means that we would have gotten out of the $9 billion deficit that we were in, and then we could use those funds to fund education in our community, trauma centers in our community. We're looking for community centers for our youth, creating jobs, teaching them science, technology, engineering, math, and the arts.
You also said you favor some kind of school committee reform. Exactly what kind?
Actually, it should be by the people and for the people.
Elected.
A school committee should be elected by the people, and there should be a youth, a student on there, residents, business organizations, all should be a part of it because that's what makes our community so vibrant.
What do you see yourself doing to get that to happen?
One, first of all, having a district office in the 11th Suffolk District open 6 days a week to connect our community to the resources and to educate them. Also having town hall meetings, Chris, once a month throughout the 11th Suffolk District to hear the issues and the concerns of our community, and then let's put our words to action.
I want to come back to wealth because there's more of that these days than there was, let's say, 5, 10, 15 years ago. But getting enough of that in the district, what kind of things would you like to see happen?
I would love to see that when development happens in our communities, our CDCs adhere to Mass General Law 40H, which says that they should hire from the community. Those first jobs that happen in our community with all development that's going on, Chris, the community residents should get those jobs first. And also the Boston residency job policy should be adhered. 50% should be Boston residents, over 50% people of color, and over 20% women.
This is BNN News, and we're talking with Charles Clemons, candidate for state representative in the 11th Suffolk District. Charles, in this district, of course, with all the worries about the housing market, you have elderly people in houses, the taxes are going up, and I know they get some protections around that from the city, but what else would you like to see done for homeowners like that?
Well, I'm glad you brought up the housing and the elderly. I'll go with the elderly first because we stand on their shoulders. The elderlies they're on a fixed income, Chris, and there's no way they can thrive with taxes going up. They are living in a threat of losing housing. So elderly should be exempt from taxes for those taxes going up. More taxes, less resources, that's not a good thing, Chris. And then housing. Affordable housing, we need to rewrite the law on what affordable truly means. Affordable should be 1/3 low income, 1/3 moderate, and 1/3 market.
I should mention, and now, of course, now with the changes expected on the U.S. Supreme Court, there's a move here in Massachusetts to make sure that we can get rid of the state's old abortion ban. Do you favor doing that?
I favor whatever is right for our residents in our community. If it's a written law that's good and favorable for our community, that's what I support. Life is precious. I support life. Always has support life and will continue to support life.
So that sounds like the nasty women measure would not get your vote, maybe.
Nasty women.
This is the vote.
I don't know.
This is the measure to repeal the old abortion law in Massachusetts.
When it comes to, I wouldn't say that at all.
That's what they call it, though.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. But I know another thing that we should be focusing on is we just passed a referendum of legalizing marijuana on July the 1st. And so many of black and brown men and women went to jail because of that law. Now the law has been changed, and now white men and women are going to make millions of dollars off of legalizing marijuana. Those that went to jail for marijuana should be let free.
You mentioned, Charles, you've got a website, so if people want to get some more details, what should they go to?
www.charlesforboston.com. That's FOR. www.charlesforboston.com. Become part of the 11-11-11 campaign. $11 within 11 months and 11 years or 11 days. Just make it happen.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Chris.
Charles Clemons, candidate for state representative in the 11th Suffolk District.